We don't have any problem voting for white people. We've been doing it since we were in this country and been allowed to vote. So the problem is not with us. The problem is with white people who refuse to vote for black people, if you're going to use his logic. The problem is that there are far too many white people who won't vote for black people simply because they're black, if you're going to use his logic.
Alrighty, welcome back. Alabama Politics this week. Josh Moon, David Person. Our thanks to Michaela DeRosier and Arthur Algo.
You're trying so hard. You're trying so
I know,
hard.
right? Hey, listen, man. No, it's like rolls off the tongue. I mean, I can't, I can't help that I'm great at names, okay? I can't. Mike Marshall. And his book, and his interview, that sounds like a really great book. I'm gonna have to read it.
It is, man. It's very well written. You would love it as a writer.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's a writer's book. As a writer, you read it and it's just so rich with detail.
Yeah.
Mike is so great with words. He's a fantastic storyteller. I think you'd love it.
Okay, well, I'm going to check it out. I love those kind of stories too. Those, the kind of the real life mystery type stories. And especially from the civil rights era and things that happen in areas that I know of personally. That it brings a whole different element into what you're reading. I really like it a lot. So I am going to check it out. I encourage everyone else to do the same. It sounds like a really good book, and a really good story. And, and whenever you can say, hey, I solved this murder, that's also, a pretty good day at the office. You know what I mean? That's a pretty good day at the office. So. Yeah. Thanks to them. Our thanks to the folks at Wind Creek Entertainment for sponsoring. Our thanks to the folks at SPLC for sponsoring as well. Yeah. We really appreciate them. And honestly, people have said, well, how you feel about the SPLC partnership? Now, I feel fantastic about the SPLC partnership. I know who they are. I've known who they are for a long, long time. I've always been proud to work with them. I will continue to be proud to work with them. I know what they do. I know where their heart is. I know what they've tried to do in this country and with and trying to help the underserved and trying to help people. Have they been able to garner a lot of money in donations along the way, and somehow or another that's looked down upon as evil? Yeah, they have. And you know what? I hope they get even more money out of this. All right. I hope they do even more and allows them to do even more attacking of racist assholes. Okay. I hope they do it all. So, I'm really, really happy with them and what's going on there.
And one reason they need to raise a lot of money, it's because they've been threatened. It's because they have been, there are entities out there that would like to literally destroy them and I think kill even their leadership. I have been to the SPLC, I think 2 or 3 times now in my life. The first time I went there to have some meetings, I remember thinking, man, this is a lot of security to get through. But when you look at what they have in their history and what they've done, you understand why.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to live in Cloverdale, in Montgomery, a few blocks away from where Morris Dees lived. And it was always funny whenever I'd go out running or whatever, while I lived down there, there was always a black police car parked right at the entrance to his driveway.
Wow.
And it was because of the death threats and it was because, and I'll tell you this, there were some very serious attempts made on his life. There were some very serious attempts that were planned. And you know what upset those plans? Paid informants. Hey. That's how they found out what happened. Yeah, that's how they found it out. Yeah. And that's how they were able to be stopped. So, and that's how they were able to stop the attacks on many other folks. I think Morris Dees would tell you right now that he's here today still because of the paid informants that they had.
It's why we know what happened with Viola Liuzzo. It's because there was an FBI informant. He was in the car with the Klansman who killed her. In fact, it's even thought he may have been the one who killed her, but regardless of whether he was or not, whether he was the trigger man or not, he was right there in the car. And that's why we know so much about that.
Yeah. It's well, we do appreciate them. Appreciate all of you for listening and continuing on with us here. And now it's our right wing nut, and our right wing nut was very, very easy this week. It is one
Easy.
Stephen Marshall.
Easy.
Hopefully soon to be. I hope that he is in his final weeks of his political career, and that he is about to ride off into the sunset, never to be heard from again. Because he has been, I've said this before, he has been one of the biggest disappointments that I have ever encountered in all of Alabama politics. He came in, and look, I know the cloud that he came in under, and I thought, this guy, he took the appointment from Bentley with the promise to fire Matt Hart and the guys who were investigating Bentley. Ultimately did that. So we probably should have known, but I had some hopes for him. I had some hopes for him. He was a former Democrat, a guy that had supported President Obama. I thought maybe there was some common sense at the base there somewhere, but he has been the ultimate. I just the pandering and the willingness to do and say anything to further his own career has been something. Listen, I talk to a lot of Republicans. Listen, these are not necessarily, I'm not telling you that we're great friends or anything like that, but we have conversations back and forth from time to time. And sometimes we'll delve into certain other things with some folks. And I'm telling you, that man has alienated so many people on both sides of the aisle by the way that he has behaved. And this week is just another example of that. When he comes out and says that the black districts in Alabama would be better off with Republican representation, and then has, as the attorney general of the state, says out loud in a podcast interview with Right Side Radio, it says it is not our job to create districts so the minority folks have a voice. I mean, that's a paraphrase, but it's roughly what he said. And essentially says it's not our job to create a district for them so they have a voice. It literally is your job to create a district so they have a voice. It literally is your
you're
job.
Saying it's all right to disenfranchise a segment of the American population. It's okay to discriminate, is what you're saying. He also said something else that was very asinine, Josh. He said, the assumption that only a black person can represent a black voter or vice versa, we've shown in the Republican Party that's not the case. Well, first of all, let's just take that statement on its face. That is flat out a lie. The Republican Party hasn't shown anything like that. All right. But even, and if you think they have, show me where. Not in the state of Alabama, show me where. But even if you want to say, even if you want to try to salvage this statement in one way or another, there's a problem here. And the problem is that nobody is saying that only black people can represent a black voter. Nobody's ever said that. In fact, as I have said on this podcast repeatedly and in other places, black people have way more experience voting for white people to represent their interests than white people have voting for black people to represent theirs. We're very experienced in that. We understand that there are going to be many situations where there's not going to be a black option for us to vote for, and we long settled that. We'll vote for a white person. We don't have any problem voting for white people. We've been doing it since we were in this country and been allowed to vote. So the problem is not with us. The problem is with white people who refuse to vote for black people, if you're going to use his logic. The problem is that there are far too many white people who won't vote for black people simply because they're black, if you're going to use his logic.
Well, yeah. And listen, honestly, you saying that is what came to mind immediately when I read that quote from him. And because I mean it's just stupid, and nobody's saying that. And the districts that were created in this state were created not for black folks to elect another black person to represent them. They were created so black folks could have the opportunity to elect a candidate of their choosing if they banded together with other like-minded voters. All right, that's all it is. If you'll notice, the district that was created where Shamari Figures was elected is not a majority black district. It's a majority white district. Yeah, it's a majority white district. It just so happens that in that district, a lot of the white people also are more likely to vote for a Democratic candidate. So, that's just how it is. But, this idea, though, to me, the most troubling thing out of all this is this idea from the Attorney General of the state that there's no responsibility to allow people to have a voice. What are you talking about? How far gone do we have to be before that seems like an okay thing to say out loud for anyone, much less the damn Attorney General of the state, a guy who wants to be a U.S. Senator?
Yeah.
I mean, it just...
Yeah,
it's so
a guy who wants to be U.S. Senator, which means he would have to represent all Alabamians.
Yeah, right.
And yet he's saying it's okay if we disenfranchise some Alabamians.
Yeah, which he clearly doesn't want to.
What the freaking mess is that?
I mean, it's so atrocious of a thing to say out loud. And you're right. When you said, show me where this happened, because I wrote in the column today, on Wednesday, and said, oh, really? So that they would be better off, if with this Republican representation, black people would be better off. Let me see what happened in the Black Belt. What happened in the Black Belt with the wastewater situation and the raw sewage flowing through streets? What did Steve Marshall do there? What did he do there? Was he the one down there making the tours, making the stops, going in, visiting with people, filing the lawsuits, fighting the government to make sure that problem got solved and we stamped out a 17th century issue down there? No. Didn't lift a finger. As a matter of fact, supported the Trump administration when they tried to kill the efforts that were underway.
That's right.
And then here, let me tell you, man, one of the worst examples of him not giving a shit about minorities in this state was when a police department in this state came to his office and said, "Hey, we have real evidence here of this auto parts supplier employing underage Hispanic workers and exploiting them. And we think that there's some human trafficking taking place to get these kids into these facilities." He never lifted a finger. He never did anything. Nothing. He didn't do anything at all, to the point that the DOJ under Donald Trump said some more should have been done, to the point that police departments in this state were critical of him for not taking it seriously. And we all know why he didn't. If those had been white kids in that place, he would have been tripping over himself. If there had been raw sewage flowing down the streets of Mountain Brook, he would have been all over that shit, literally. I mean, it just, that is what we're saying, is what I was saying earlier. The representation for people matters. All right. It matters tremendously. It matters that you have people who understand the lives of others, because we have proven time and time again, our white lawmakers have proven, white Republicans especially, have proven over and over and over that they do not understand a lot of the issues out there. They have refused to recognize the history and the role that history has played in producing some of the issues that now exist in a lot of communities in this state. They have refused to acknowledge their role in making some things worse, and they have refused to acknowledge that we have a responsibility to make these things better,
Exactly.
And it just, it's so it's so frustrating to continuously watch this racist shit go down. It really is.
Yeah, there's so much. The level of denial is extraordinary. The level of willful ignorance is extraordinary, and what we're looking for as Black people. If you want to reduce this down to race, which it seems like in Alabama politics, that's what it all comes down to. We're looking for representation. You know, I don't care if the person is white or Black as long as they represent our interests. You know, now, based on the history of this nation, based on what has been demonstrated in this state, it appears as though white elected officials are less inclined to do that, especially if they're Republican. But you know what? If there's a white guy or a white woman who says, I'm going to advocate for your issues, I'm going to represent your issues, great. That's wonderful. We'll be glad to vote for that person.
Yep.
And we also realize that every Black person that runs is not, let me reduce it to something we say in our community. All kinfolk ain't skinfolk. And just because a person is Black doesn't mean that they're going to represent our interests. And all I need to do is point to somebody like Clarence Thomas or Tim Scott to say in South Carolina as examples, of people who sometimes, Tim Scott is not as bad as Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas is the worst I've ever seen. But Tim Scott, at least some of the time, I don't know what percentage of the time, but at least some percentage of the time, he acts like he understands what the issues are that are facing people of color. But there's no guarantee with race. What we're looking for is representation.
Yeah. Well, listen, Tim Scott's striving, listen, if somebody would buy his mama's house for him, maybe, maybe they would be, maybe he could get there, just
give him some luxury vacations.
Give him a good RV somewhere, get on out of here, get out of South Carolina for a little bit, travel the world. I'm going to have to remember the kinfolk thing. That's a pretty good line. But
all kinfolk ain't skin. All skin. What? Yeah, all kinfolk. Let's see. Now I'm messing it up. What is it?
It's all skinfolk ain't kinfolk, right?
Ain't kinfolk. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So but it just I don't understand the everybody being okay with cheating now. I don't understand I've never understood this, the resistance to acknowledging the history that we have and the role that history has played in damaging a lot of communities. Because it almost seems as though people, even in government positions, take it as a personal affront to them, as though they're going to somehow lose something if we just acknowledge this and go and fix it. Like the wastewater situation in the Black Belt. I mean, all these Republicans are so resistant to that. Why? Just go and fix the damn pipes. What are we doing? Why are we? You know what I'm saying? Why does it have to be such a political issue like that when we see this problem and you see it affecting so many people, and we know that there are systems that can work? Why wouldn't you just put the money up and go and fix it? I don't understand. And it just, to me, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever the way we've done this.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Well, and I understand that there's some complicating factors in the Black Belt due to the soil and so forth. But still, the bottom line isn't, the color of the skin of the person representing those areas. It's the representation, the quality of the representation, the commitment of the representatives to see these problems and address these problems, to advocate for the people in Lowndes County and Uniontown and other parts of Alabama that have these really dreadful problems.
Yeah, you're right. And it's representation always matters. And the idea that you're going to be okay with somebody not having a voice in this government is, it's the most anti-American thing that you could ever utter.
That's right.
To me, it's the most anti-American thing ever. And the founding fathers would have just absolutely shunned you for such a statement. They really would. All right. We got to slide out of here. Until next week, y'all be safe out there.
Peace.